What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Four Cauliflower Ears. This is episode 20 or so, 21 maybe,
20 or so.
20, I think. Here with Mr. Axel, our newly crowned black belt at Uprise. Congratulations.
Freshly minted Gustavo Gasprin black belt.
Congratulations. That's a huge achievement in 9 years only.
Only 9.
Only 9 years.
I beat the average by 1 year.
You beat the average by 1 year. That's 10%. 10%.
Yeah.
Don't get me.
I'm slightly.
Don't let me nerd out here because I just finished watching something really interesting. I just wasted 2 hours and 13 minutes of my life.
You're amazing for getting through it.
No, I didn't necessarily get through it. I had to take pauses because I kid you not. I watched two episodes of Chernobyl in the meantime.
You did?
I love that show.
Chernobyl is amazing, but
Oh,
it's so depressing. It's so depressing,
Even
though.
though it's anti-nuclear, I still like it.
It's so depressing, and it's funny because I felt like refreshment watching it.
I remember living through
Watching
it.
people dying from
It was
radioactive, radioactivity.
There's only like 40 people.
Yeah, but
But people were scared. I mean, it was like a scary thing back
yeah,
then.
yeah.
Because you thought it could like spread, and I don't think people thought it was that little of a number. They made it seem like something crazy.
I was
just
only
happened.
10 years old, but because of the proximity of where we live.
I mean, we were far from it. I was in America.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I was just telling my wife today. It's quite interesting that people on the other side of the pond, if you're in America, something happens in Europe, unless it's economically or politically, like the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel has some economic implications. Maybe 6 months later here, right? Or even if coronavirus, for example, was contained within China only, it would have had economic implications on the world eventually,
Right.
but maybe 6 months later, right? But emotionally, you wouldn't be that affected by it.
Sure.
Because you're all the way on the other side. Like, revolutions happening in South America throughout the decades had zero impact on Europe necessarily, but aside from the terrorism from Carlos the Jackal, who was South American, but that's a different story. But revolutions happening in Africa, for example, had bigger impact because of the colonialism and all that. But anyway, so Chernobyl happened. I was close to it when it happened, and I was 10 years old. Well, I mean, but Ukraine is a huge country, and Chernobyl is on the east side of Ukraine, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
But Ukraine was Russia then, right? Or
It's part of the Soviet Union, but
Right.
but Chernobyl is still in Ukraine. But what happened was when it blew. I think that it's like a huge plain, it's just plains and plains and plains of like no mountains, no shit there, right?
Wheat fields.
Yeah, wheat fields, and they go through Belarus, and then they go all the way to Poland and all that, and it's just no mountains, nothing to stop necessarily
Right.
imagine,
Cloud.
yeah. So nothing stops it really from just spreading, and they mentioned it in the series, right? We were on the other side of the sea, of Black Sea. So actually, they didn't mention Bulgaria. They said that it would be felt, the radiation would be felt for years to come in East Germany, Poland, Romania, the countries that actually border.
Because it spread
Ukraine.
from when Japan had that problem. It spread almost to Hawaii, didn't it? Well, they were scared it was.
I mean, they would be scared because Hawaii is American state, right? But I think they should be more scared about Korea because it's right there. You know what I mean? It's just that I don't think it's gonna like blow all the way to the ocean because there's so many currents,
Right.
and I don't know. I'm not a scientist on how
I think
it would blow or not.
there was fish or something that they had like a higher.
Oh, probably. Oh yeah, if you start fishing in the sea, it's gonna be
Right.
like really dangerous.
They have
So-
to use water to
Correct.
cool the plants, so
Yeah.
a lot of that water is contaminated.
Right. So I remember my grandparents were telling me not to go outside and play and stuff like this.
Really?
Like it happened in April, and I think, and here's the thing, because it was hushed, right, in the beginning,
Like what year is this again?
86 in April, and it was hushed in the beginning until it
It's
became
not-
knowledge because fucking Sweden tested for radiation, and they notified the Western world and America saw something happen from a satellite, and they called Gorbachev and said, "What the hell is going on?" So it blew out of proportion. So they knew they had to do something, but they were going to leave it on the covers, and so in Bulgaria we had like there was no news about it, obviously, right? Until it was already known, and then even then it was like something happened, but not exactly know what. And
So
it's
they
like,
kind
well,
of-
something happens in a nuclear
They
plant.
censor it,
It's not that
probably?
good, probably.
Yeah.
yeah, correct.
Because you were on like state TV.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, that's how it still is, I
Yeah.
guess, over there.
No, in Bulgaria?
Oh, no, in Russia.
In Russia, I mean, technically, officially not, but technically yes. Right, it's censored. Anyway, so I clearly remember, I
Is the
wasn't
show
able
like
to
a
go out and
drama,
play.
or is it like a documentary?
No, it's a drama. It's a series. It's like movie, you know.
Based on.
But we still kept going to school, though. They didn't close the schools. That's why we're so well educated, because no matter what happens, we're still going to school. And you know,
That's
That's why you're so
important.
smart.
that's why you said it. I said we're so well educated, but you actually said what I wanted to say.
The
But I meant-
radiation got into his head.
I wouldn't go as far as that. Now let's change the subject. Anyway, so I sat through more than 2 hours. I'm missing probably 5 minutes from the show, but I have to come here. I told you, I started watching it 1 o'clock the show. The debate between Greg Souders and
Big Dan
Dan
Manisow.
Manisow, and I'm
Maybe explain what the debate.
right. So the debate was about, and I'll explain after that how it happened, how it came to be. The debate was about Dan Manisow said, "You are too arrogant to say that your ecological approach to learning is the only approach and the best approach, and that everyone else is doing the wrong thing."
He
Why he
seriously
said that?
rejected it.
Correct, and the reason he said that is simply because Greg Souders, who's an arrogant person, and he comes out as such, but he also is such apparently.
I think he definitely is, but he
2 hours he didn't
really
change his attitude. That's probably.
He really comes off
Yes.
as that.
And he said.
And he's aware of that
He
too.
said that somewhere there was an interview or whatever, and he was taken out of context according to him. He said that you don't need to buy a $400
John Danaher,
DVD.
yeah.
He didn't mention John Danaher. He said a
Instructionals.
$400 instructional on leg locks, which the only one is John Danaher's and maybe Gordon also, right? That costs that kind of money. You didn't have to buy that to become
insinuated.
good at it. All you have to do is put your legs inside and boom, and I'm like okay. And he said, well, that was taken out of context. And I told him, why would you post that in this way? What?
Did he take it down though?
Right. So
Like, if you
it's
really
not
felt
taken
like
out
that.
of context if you said it.
And if you
It may
posted
be
it.
said out of context it may be part of a bigger speech that you gave, but it's definitely not taken out of context. Taken out of context would be, I can show you how to finish a leg lock in 5 minutes. Put your legs on the inside. Saying you don't have to spend $400 on an instructional and waste your money, and I can show you how to do it much faster and teach you is a different story. That's not out of context.
That's a
whole.
quick.
That's a whole.
That's an easy
Paragraph.
defense to throw it really quick.
That's a
It kind of
paragraph.
obfuscates the point.
Right.
Because if he was being legitimate, if it was me or something, I'd be like, that was wrong. And what I meant, I would try to explain
You
it
can
or
also
something.
just be honest, like I'm trying to sell
He's not
my
going to do that.
brand, it's
That,
just
I mean, that would be cool.
No,
if
but
he did
that's
that.
why
this is
Dan
a-
got upset too, because he's like,
we
why
live-
would
we
you
live in a
try and
clickbait
fuck up someone
society.
else's sales? Especially I didn't know that, but Greg had trained at the Blue Basement. Not trained, but he had gone to train there. He knows exactly how they train. Greg apparently was also
Did you see the one with the back when him and Dan were debating about
the
crossing the?
crossing the legs from the back. Yeah.
And they-
so
what-
the point
that
there
back and
was
forth?
I'm sure Dan knows that this is not the most dangerous thing, but it's what Dan was saying is this is something that they teach you fundamentally
Yes,
wrong
and you
to
don't
cross your
do that
feet. Yeah,
because
you
it's
don't do it
wrong.
because it's wrong because there's
And Greg Soder said that he asked that same question, or somebody
and
asked.
Danaher, yes,
And Danaher
said
first of all, that was like, I was like, I must be getting old, because John Danaher might have said that, but I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? He said somebody asked that question, John Danaher answered, kill yourself.
Kill yourself if they submit you with ankle lock.
Yeah, I'm like-
kill yourself. It sounds like something Danica would say
And
as
I'm
a
not-
joke.
I think he did say
It's
it.
kind of like a Kiwi Aussie dry
What I'm
humor,
saying
you
is,
know,
it
like
doesn't.
that kind
It
of
didn't make the point that Greg Sillers was trying to make.
Correct. It had nothing to
So
do
why
with.
did he bring that? He
Or
brought
Dan
it.
was
He
trying to
brought,
make.
he brought it up as like a gotcha, or like you got him in a spot, and it was.
Continuously, what I took out of this thing is that, and then we'll tell how we do it, pretty much. But what we think. What I took out of it is that Dan was insisting that yes, we do have positional sparring constraints, constrained sparring approach, and all that stuff. Which means basically what it means is, although not as constrained as Greg Sotos does it. But what they do is, what we do here positionally is, let's say they start from a certain position, and one person is on top, and the goal of the person on top is to take the back and maybe mount the other person, maybe submit, whatever the case is, while you're in control in those positions. But if the person in the bottom turtle regards or stands up, then the other person goes on bottom. Right? Simple, just positional sparring. The difference is that in the Greg Sotos case, the constraints there are you cannot put your hands in front of you cannot get a seatbelt. You can only keep your arms behind the shoulders.
Well, there's probably an infinite number of constraints.
Infinite number, depending on what you're
Especially
trying to
teach
achieve.
a day one.
Correct.
person.
Now I understand this whole concept of the
I do
constraints.
too, but
Right.
in and of itself, it's like trying
No.
to teach a kid how to
So
speak.
what Dan is saying is we do that and we believe that this works. However, you cannot tell me that if you're there, and he said it multiple times, and Greg Sotos every time kind of said the same thing. Dan said, let me ask you this. If you are watching two white belts and you see that they're doing something wrong,
Right.
and you are there, would you correct them?
Yeah.
And he said, no.
Right.
And he said, why wouldn't you correct them? Because they'll figure it out. Essentially, in his own language, he said, because they'll figure it out eventually. And Dan says, well, here's the thing. That's why we're there, to speed up the figuring out process.
100%.
Now, Greg Sotos' case here is the following, which is very interesting too. He says, well, if I correct it for them, I will give them the way to do it, but there's so many variables that they might never come across and be able to use the... So I'm like,
No.
There is variables, definitely.
They're going to be in an infinite number. How many times are they going to roll and be in that situation with different people?
Right.
Where something different is going to come up.
Axel, show a wrist lock. Show me a wrist lock.
Don't mind if I do.
Right.
My favorite thing ever.
Tap. What makes it work?
Say it again.
Motherfucker. Stay there. What makes this thing work? Is it this?
That's part of it.
It's this.
Well, you
It's
got to
this.
have both.
How long is it gonna take a
It's
beginner
really
to figure that shit out?
It's really the emotional damage.
The emotional damage is just the
Emotional
word.
damage. Shout out to Steven.
Whatever. No, but my point here is that how are you gonna know
So I didn't get super deep into the podcast.
as
Or
deep
the-
as you got
the
into
art.
wrist locks, obviously? This is gonna cost you by one.
It sounded like
Keep talking.
Tom DeBlas is constantly trying to ask him, does drilling have no points?
You want one?
And he would constantly say, no, of course it has. Like, I'm not going to say it doesn't have a point. That's not what I'm trying to say. And then he'd bring up a study about how a skill practiced out of context, a movement practiced out of context, consistently underperforms as opposed to skills practiced in context. And he's saying that constraint-based learning is in context and drilling is out of context. And he kept saying that over and over again, but he would never
Not necessarily.
he would never answer the
Yeah.
question, and he wasn't willing to say that it had a place. He's just not willing to say that it didn't have a place.
Right.
That's
Because,
how you know he
probably
has a-
because there's just no evidence
He has a
about whether or
blockage.
not jiu-jitsu,
well,
whether or not drilling has no benefit.
so he was saying this because he asked him, "Are we doing the wrong thing, drilling? Are you telling me that Jordan Burroughs has been doing the wrong thing?
I remember you talking about Jordan Brooks.
Jordan
yeah.
Burroughs has been doing the wrong thing, shooting double legs over and over and over again."
Right.
He says, "No, No, he says yes. He says, so how did he learn to do it if he didn't practice it, if he
Right.
didn't drill it?
Right.
He says, well, if you take Jordan Burroughs and you film him and he does the same takedown, but the person is in different time frames, you will notice that it's always different to perform. Well, yeah, it's always different to perform, but the point here is that yes, there are variables, right? Like the guy might have one leg a little bit further back, but Jordan Burroughs' job is to drill that to oblivion until he knows that he has the confidence to go out there and shoot it anyway,
Right.
and take the other guy out of the mat, off the mat. Now, he's saying no. Jordan Burroughs learned that through wrestling, and so what Greg Souders is saying, Jordan Burroughs, instead of drilling that thing 100 times a day, could have utilized his time better by wrestling live and doing those in a live. You wrestled.
No.
You wrestle.
No. You
It
drill
doesn't
it
work that
100
fucking way.
times, and then you wrestle, and then
Yes.
you've got to have it first.
You cannot have. You can't have a. So
You get better with the
he
touches
kept
the
going-
more
he
you do
kept
it
going-
live.
He kept going back to also thousands of years ago. Assume that we know the first two people who came up with wrestling. They didn't know what to do, and then it's like, yes, and their technique probably sucked, but since then, from generation to
Right.
generation, the technique improves.
Right.
So there is no ideal technique as such, but the technique evolves, and it
Right.
evolves because of teachers and instructors and examples and generations before
Well,
you.
Greg Souders was trying to get him with the infinite regression.
Yes.
Like the turtles
Right.
all the way back.
Mm.
And I'm like, why are you bringing up some arcane, like, paradox?
And so, because I know that there is going to be a lot of people who will, well, not a lot of people because nobody watches, but 10 years from now, when you watch that, and what's it called, ecological approach is almost as extinct as, what should we say, toe hold is today. Although you tell me with the toe hold today. No.
Toe holds aren't, people use toe
Nah,
holds.
people use toe holds, but if you look
People,
at the
when I first started
If you
jiu-jitsu
look
in,
at
in the late 90s, people did use toe holds a lot back then. Toe holds have kind of, like I've seen kind of like a,
I think that
and even
compared
like
to
wrist
other,
locks were looked down on like
compare,
like,
no, but
doing?
I'm saying as far as popularity or effectiveness of toe holds, right? Compared to other leg locks, for example,
They
right?
might be less.
So
of-
yeah,
they're- I think they're,
so they'll be almost as extinct as toe holds will be at that time, or
I don't
unless
like,
somebody
I don't
comes
like
up
the way you're
with
talking
ankle
about
locks.
toe holds. I don't
Ankle
like the way
locks.
you're talking about toe holds.
Ankle
right
locks
now.
were going extinct for a second. Now they're the most now they're more popular than a fucking heel hook, right? So because of evolution again, you know. But I think that
There's always a cycle.
there's a
of
cycle.
moves that
There's a
just you
cycle.
Stop defending and
And
worrying about a
there's-
move, and then somebody rediscovers that it's useful.
I'm
again.
waiting for
Yeah.
armbar from the guard to come back into vogue.
The armbar from the guard.
That's the first
Yeah.
we've ever fell in love
I've never,
Wait for the close guard to come back and go first.
with. You ain't lying.
I've never stopped liking the armbar from close guard.
You never play close guard. You just like it on TV.
On TV, on the internet.
I was born in the 70s. I meant what I said.
VHS.
But he kept bringing up the fact that he has read so much about
It was ways
ways
so
of learning and stuff like
academic.
this. Yes, and
I
that's okay.
I
And that's
appreciate
okay.
that.
And that's
But
okay because
we're
there are
not
people who
worshiping.
dedicate their lives on studying behavior, which is what he's talking about, reading up on that stuff and learning about it. That's amazing. That's great. The thing here is that you can study behavior all you want, but how much sample size do we have about jiu-jitsu? We're barely starting with that.
Right, that's a great point.
And
I think you can also be paralyzed by waiting for a study to tell you whether or not you can do
100%.
something.
correct, absolutely.
We haven't. There's maybe some fields where there's so much funding, there's so much research, and there's so much like body of research on these things. Jiu-jitsu is not that.
That's what they're talking about.
So we don't have
And
like
to be fair to him, some of the
decades
studies
of
and stuff that
study.
he's talking about, it's more about like the study of actual like learning
Yeah,
and how
that's
people
what it is.
how people learn.
Even-
so they have there's a big body of that, but as with jujitsu, 100%, it's going to be a different.
But
metric, I
you
think.
saw what I sent you,
Sure.
that I
Yeah.
googled on. I didn't Google it. It was from AI. Just an explanation of the two main types of learning, behavioral and that would actually
One
give
was
a-
constructivist.
constructivist, and then they changed up the name of the second on the constructivist. But anyway, the point is, yeah, you have it there. The point is that I asked the next question: which
Cognitivist.
cognitivist, which fields does it apply to? And it said they apply to different fields mainly,
Right.
because behavioral will apply better to mathematics, for example, than like how are you going to figure out math on your own? Well, yeah, if you start counting 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to take you like 100 years to figure out.
And that's my
Like-
problem with some of these ecological guys will say that they don't want to tell you anything. Like how
Right.
they don't want to give you any answers because they feel like they're depriving you of the chance to discover for
Yeah,
yourself.
that's weird.
I think that you're going to discover things for yourself anyway.
Great point.
And
Great.
there's if every person that got into physics was like, okay, I have to start from nothing.
Yeah.
Every
You
single
never
time.
go anywhere.
I have to we're not going to get anywhere with it. All of these practices are built on what your predecessors learned
100%.
and then shared with you. And some of it, what I do think you shouldn't do as a teacher is tell somebody the answer to a problem that they don't know about already.
That's how I
Right.
approached the very first class I started on a couple of Thursdays ago. I told them let's do some rounds, and those were positional rounds. I told them the only thing is, it was from side control, and then we'll address some questions that you have. But I'm still going to address the fucking questions. I'm not gonna let them figure it out on their own and watch them struggle. So I told him I don't want to tell you what to do because you don't have actual question yet. Why don't you do it and then see what comes out of it? And I had like question from 3 different people. There were about 15 people on the mat, which means that at least 3 more or 4 more people had the same questions.
Right, sure.
Right? So questions arise, and that's great because
And
that's
also,
how.
sometimes someone will hear a question and be like, "Oh,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I have that question
Yeah,
now
yeah,
too."
yeah. So three people asked me questions. That probably means that there was at least double that number of people that had questions. Their questions just got answered, And it's like that's why I tell everybody, like whenever there's a Q&A, I tell there is no stupid questions. Ask because somebody else might have the same stupid question as you, and they're afraid to ask it. You know what I'm saying? And you think it's stupid, they think it's stupid, and it's not. It's just a question. You're like, you could be asking the same question as 3 other people, and all of you think it's stupid, and then nobody will know what it is. And I don't know what your question is, right? And when you watch them roll, then you can probably tell. I mean, okay, you're doing
Like,
this.
oh, they actually were stupid.
Except when, like the one case where you'll have like
Sometimes.
someone, and I haven't really had it in here. Maybe sometimes, but when someone will try to what if something to death.
Oh, that's another one.
Oh, well, what if I put my butterfly on the left side? Okay, well, what if you're like, dude.
It's a different thing.
That brings me to the next point,
It's a different thing.
which I wanted to tell how we actually have been learning here, and we tried it with you as well. You and I.
Before you get to
yes.
that, I will say that I've had either someone telling me in person or watching instructional DVDs, a ton from Danaher, really. They give me either moves or even just a detail or a concept or just any kind of point about a move that completely changes everything. Well, sometimes eliminate problems I've had for years. I've had a problem with something for years, I can't figure it out, and somebody will tell me the right thing I need to know, and it just it enables me to jump forward. And if no one told me it, maybe in 5 years I finally figured it out, but you don't necessarily need to figure out every single thing for it to stick. And I think that's their main objection with telling you to not tell somebody the answer. They'll forget it. It's not going to stick because you told it to them. They didn't find it out on their own, so they'll be like, oh, okay. And then when they're rolling they forget about it ever existing. Hey, if that happens and they forget about it, and then this like thing about not teaching them ever won't be an issue because they
I
remember
mean,
it.
I mean, if he never teaches how to do a kimura, for example, whoever is going to come up with a configuration of your arms, how to do a kimura, you know, if you never teach that, and you're going to say, you can say what you want about the leg locks and stuff like this. Yeah, your legs are going to be on the inside. Just
Well,
try to keep your legs on the inside, but what if?
It's so much more complex.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. I mean,
Wouldn't he start you off in a Kimura and be like, okay, you with the Kimura, submit him?
correct. Well, that's
Like he would be like, all right, put your hand here,
that's
put your hand
great.
here.
So
That's great.
That's what Mike has been teaching.
Right.
Based off of this, and something that he's come up against is that like this works really well for teaching certain things, and I strongly think that this applies to certain skill sets in
Ecological.
combat sports really, really well, and it applies to other skill sets really terribly. So
I
like
think that it would be great
hand
for guard
fighting.
passing, hand fighting.
I think for hand fighting, it's one of the best things you could do. Like me teaching somebody every grip and like every possible sequence of like, okay, they grab here, you break in, and grab here, and they
Yeah.
like that's terrible for that. But teaching them in a, you know, your goal is to get to these sets of grips and find any way you want to get to them. I think it works really well for that. Teaching a heel hook.
Greg Souders gave us an example.
You need some details.
Greg Souders gave us an example. Well, I'll tell them, okay, we need to get to an underhook. This is an underhook. So just get to it. I mean, yeah, it's a fucking underhook. Of course you're gonna get to it. You know, you're gonna push, pull, and then boom, you're gonna get the underhook, right? You're also going to get to a proper hand position in a grip fight. You're also gonna be able to pass the guard. It also depends on how much bigger you are, how much faster, how much stronger, how much more athletic, or how much more skilled you are than the other person. If we assume that they're both first day, and you tell the guy, all you have to do is say, this guy lays on his back playing guard, open guard, all you have to do is get past his legs and get chest to chest. I don't care what you do, just get chest to chest. Don't worry about underhooks, don't worry about crossface. Chest to chest. They'll find a way, trust me. And that's amazing for this particular, that's great, you know? If you give two guys never wrestled in their lives before, and you tell them, I want you to get to one leg and just take him down. Of course they'll get to one leg and take him down. You know, especially if the other guy has never wrestled, he's gonna lose his balance, he's gonna fall. Period. But there are so many more efficient ways to do it
Right.
than what you're actually doing. Now
From that point,
now you're
to
gonna
get-
have questions.
Right.
Once you try it out a few times, yes, you are gonna have questions, but you can't teach a fucking heel hook. You can't teach a kimura or a wrist lock. That just doesn't work because there's, yeah.
Like no one's gonna learn a berimbolo.
Who is gonna?
right.
You know.
Berimbolo
Go from
requires
this
drilling.
position to
Berimbolo requires drilling, and I'll tell you something. Ask Michael Musumeci. There is a video of him on. I don't know if it's on Flow
Oh,
Grappling
when he's
or
like break
YouTube.
dancing.
He's
Just
doing
this.
he's doing it with a partner. He's doing 5 minutes of berimbolo on both
That's
sides.
crazy.
5 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. Berimbolo to back tech. No gi. 5 minutes straight ahead, straight up. Rest for 1 minute and again. And it's like, of course, these are reps. You take it. There is no resistance and all that. But when there is a low resistance, which brings me to that, unless you wanted to finish, I don't know if you had the point that you wanted to make, if you made it, but brings me to the way we've been learning, like in the past few years. We'll find a specific technique that interests us, whatever it is. Let's say side triangle from north-south kimura, from dorsal kimura, right? And we're like, all right, well, you know, you get to the kimura. I'm holding my hands. You can't finish the kimura, and then he says you go down because we've seen the technique in the instructional, right? For some reason, it doesn't. I mean, we want to try it out. We've never done it, so I get to that position, and Axel goes, okay. Well, I'll put my leg here, just like it says in the instructional, and I'll do it. And okay, I'll move my body, like he says. We'll watch the technique again because it's a long technique, relatively long. We'll watch it again. We'll figure it out. I'll tap with no resistance. The only thing I'm doing there is holding my hands. That's it. Because if I don't, he's going to kimura me, right? So the only thing I'm doing is holding my hands together. And he taps me with the triangle with no resistance.
Minimal resistance.
And then I'm not the one that starts giving him resistance. Yeah, I'm not the one giving him resistance. He says, okay, now what would you do from this position. And I'm like, let's see. So I start doing this, right? And then he finds an answer to it. Says, what else would you do? Is there something else? Because maybe I've never been in that position before. Maybe I didn't find the best solution to it either, you know? So I'll do something else. So I'll do, let's say, maybe this, right? And he will find an answer to it. He said, no, if you do that, I'm going to triangle you right away. So I'm like, yeah, that's stupid. What if I let go and then I'll kimura you? And then all of a sudden, he's got a complete game from that position based on the fact that we sat down for about an hour, right? And we went from no resistance to maximum resistance eventually, right? Eventually it's like, I'm really fighting for my life, and he went from not knowing how to do that technique, from just seeing it, but having a good foundation in jiu-jitsu obviously, to being able to finish it under complete duress and resistance. And that's because of the way we drilled it. We drilled the technique, like literally drilled it without resistance, dry drilling, right, if you will. And then we started doing the more ecological type of drilling, where let's see a little resistance here, so it's positional still, but
that's like problem solving together through it.
Yes.
Like sitting in a position and be like, how did that feel?
Yeah.
Does that choke? Is it not choking? Does it feel like it's tight? Could you get out in whatever kind of way? Do you think you could resist in this way? What if you try to counter whatever it happens?
By the way, not everyone can drill that way.
No, I think there's different ways of learning.
But no, I'm saying not everyone can actually get together with you and drill that way.
Yeah.
So
It is real chemistry.
yeah, because it requires chemistry. Because a lot of times people.
Especially like what me and this guy have.
Precisely, because what happens is I'll give him a low resistance,
Right.
and I'll say, is that okay, or you want more resistance? You want, give me a little more, you know. But most of the time, people will go from, you tell them, give me about
0 to 100.
20% resistance. What's 20% to them? 20% to them might be 100% to
Greg
me.
Sutter brought that up in one of the videos that I saw, and he used that. He was like, okay, if I said 20%, his 20% is going to be different than his 20%.
Percentages is stupid.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't.
But
it
again,
should be.
if you have chemistry with somebody, then it's.
Well, then you know more or
then
less
you
what
know,
to expect
right.
and what to.
100%.
It should be incremental. These like when we're working like that, we're trying to find the breaking point. So you add a little resistance, you can still do it. You add a little bit more, you can still do it. Then you try to stop it. And there's two things that will happen. Either it works anyway, and like, okay, well, you got it. You know, like I can't stop it no matter what I do. Or it doesn't work, and then you're like, okay, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's figure out why doesn't it work, and how can we try to break through it. And sometimes we'll do a move and just be like, it doesn't work for us. Maybe like
the
it
honey
doesn't.
stick. Do you remember we spent 45 minutes on the honey stick?
Yeah, sometimes we'll be drilling something for like days or weeks, and then we're like, this thing sucks.
So the honey stick, we spent 45 minutes on the honey stick because there was a central problem to the honey stick.
Was.
Remember it's from honey hole essentially.
I think I have a different honey stick. So.
It's a different honey hole. It's called a honey stick because it starts from honey hole, and you essentially counterattack their honey hole, and you remember when you trap their leg, so you escape.
That's stupid.
And
they're like
I just heard
have a butterfly hook inside
I just heard
of it.
yeah I
Is
just
that
heard
what Nicky Rod did to JT Torres?
I don't know, it does work if you
Not Nicky.
haven't been caught in that.
Nicky Rod.
It'll probably work, but then the thing is we started playing with it because it worked in the beginning. We were like, holy shit, how come nobody else does that? And then we started, well, hold on a second, how am I going to move your leg from this side to this side? Because if your leg is here,
What's the finish? What's the final finish?
For me, the problem was that there's like the whole idea of the move is that it's like it's the saddle, right? But there you
Counter
trap
to the saddle,
you
yeah, you
trap
trap-
their foot, their secondary leg in between your legs. The problem with that is that foot is now able to start extending and create space, and like it's hard to like no matter how hard you squeeze, like and especially when there's like a size difference, like you just can't.
one leg,
if you're bigger than
he's
the person.
taller, his leg is sticking out and all that. You can't move it to the other side, and it becomes a lot of like.
Well, I'm bigger than you, and you're still able, like, once you actually resisted, I could not.
Yeah, true.
And I'm
Even
bigger.
then.
I'm
Even
bigger. Like I should, if I can't stop him from doing it, and
But the
and I'm
thing is,
trying
we
as hard
worked
as
on
I
it
can,
for.
you know?
It took us probably about because we drilled it at first just to feel how it like just to see what it is, and then we started adding a little resistance, a little what would you do here and all that stuff, and it took about 20 minutes to figure out that it's very hard to actually hit it if they know what they're doing.
Is it used a bunch?
No, not really, but it happens, and so it's not that hard to get to. It's just it happens from a certain position, right?
I think any move can work. Is the thing.
Right, right.
Any move
Any move can work.
A surprising amount of things work, but
We actually spent another 20-25 minutes on just trying to make it work under
Different conditions of
resistance. And we just tossed it. I don't know. Maybe if someone knows how to do it 100% of the time, you know, once they get to that position, because I mean not 100, but give me a good percentage. You know, like give me a good odds on is it worth me? Because also it locks you in a position where you become vulnerable. That's a problem, right? So you lock their leg, but then you lock your legs too, and it's like, man, if they free their legs or one of their legs or something, you're fucked because you're there, right? So it's
somebody else.
the ratio of risk to reward wasn't.
Right.
Somebody
Jesus
else,
or
I'll
squeeze.
do this. I don't think there's some movements that you should practice, like repetitive drilling on over and over again. I think like the wrestling shot is something you just need to do like an insane amount of reps for. I think the roundhouse kick was another one of those things where you just need to do that.
That's the one you do 10,000 times.
You need to do that a lot. Like you need to do it way more than you want to. Like you just need to do it over and over and over again. I think part of it is like you want to build the like endurance and strength for it, the mind-body connection to be able to just do it on a split-second notice.
Would you include the teep in that category? Because it requires a balance that you do have only with repetition, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think in striking, in general, you want to do a lot of repetition of every
I think so,
major
right?
strike. A lot, like, I think that the way you train striking, grappling, is in some ways a bit different. I think striking benefits more from repetitive drilling.
You
A
think
lot more.
ecological would work with boxing?
I don't think
I think it does actually. I think
ecological with boxing,
I think with striking in general, I think it does work a lot.
but there would be a lot more drilling though, a lot more repetitiveness.
So I think that like for jiu-jitsu, I don't think you need to practice like, you know, every move in grappling except for certain movements. You need to practice certain movements over and over again. I don't think you need to practice an armbar 5,000 times, like an armbar from mount 5,000 times. I just don't like. Honestly,
Once you got it,
do
you
the
got
move
it.
like 5 times and then start adding resistance. But movements like versions, hip escapes,
Right.
you know, shots, the various kinds of kicks and punches in Muay Thai, I think you need to just do like a lot of reps of that. In grappling, you're gonna get a lot of reps of it just through doing technique. Like almost every technique involves like a lot of the various movements. Like, I think that's the reason why when you're more advanced, you can learn things easier, because most techniques are just some combination of hip escape, invert, reverse hip escape, get frame, get an underhook. Like it's a lot of the same movements, just like you've already done most of it. You see a move online, like you've done 90% of those moves, just like adding just a little bit, or like in a new context or whatever.
And that comes down from experience too. You can't do that if you're a beginner. If you're like
Every
if you've done
movement's
that,
new. Yeah.
right? But I mean, yeah, every movement is new. So you're gonna be like. Sometimes I get messages from you know, friends from the gym, from students especially. You know, I get like some video from Instagram. It's like, wow, look at that. It's like this would be interesting, and I'm thinking it would be if you knew how to get to the fucking position in the first place. It would be amazing. Actually, that would be more amazing than if you hit the move. You know? But I don't like. I'm like it's
I get it.
the setup is what you're gonna be learning here, not the move itself. You know, like you're trying to hit an Imanari roll from like while you're standing, but you can't.
Invert.
Like yeah, it's kind of, yeah. But the what was I gonna say about that? There is a thing that I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've noticed a direct correlation between people who have been I've known like brown belts, black belts like 15 years like jiu-jitsu behind them, and they are obviously very good at like top pressure, and they'll fucking crush you. They get on top, you can't get out, right? They'll crush you. They know exactly where to put their weight, and that comes with experience. Your body learns how to move regardless of how much technique you learn, right?
And you know the feeling.
It's the feel. It's the feel. That takes
the feel takes so long. It's the longest thing to learn.
Those guys also. The guys that I have in mind, that I'm talking about, I mean, I don't have anybody in mind, but I've met people like that, and I've noticed that they got like one submission they can reliably hit, or two max, and it's like they're always going there, and they will get there eventually if you let them, right? But if you know that they're going for it, you're just not gonna let them get there. You're gonna suffer a whole lot because they're gonna be there grinding you and all that stuff, but you're not gonna let them get there. The problem is that they have nothing else, and I've noticed a direct correlation between that person's love for roll, and hatred for drill.
Okay.
And here's the thing.
That makes sense.
And here's the thing. If you haven't drilled enough, of course you're not gonna have a variety of techniques. You're not gonna be able to chain 2 or 3 submissions together, you know? You're not gonna know.
Open rolling, open sparring is never going to get you significantly better.
Right.
Like, it's just not.
In jiu-jitsu though, it will get you that top pressure and body movement because of experience. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Like, it will get better.
In stand
it's
up,
going to be really slow.
In stand up, you will have definitely faster reflexes, maybe better footwork than most people, and that's going to be mostly instinctual, but not because you drill footwork and stuff like this.
You're also going to reinforce the same bad habits.
Correct.
You're going to go to the well in the same couple moves over and over again.
Right.
You're never going to significantly improve with unstructured live training. Like, I do think that live training is what separates combat sports from traditional martial arts. And if you just don't do any live training, you don't know how to do any of that.
Sure.
If you can't do the move to someone that's trying not to let you do it, you can't do it. That's just straight up. But then also, like, you know, animals learn by fighting with each other, right? Play fighting.
Yeah.
And I think the playfulness is an important part of it. But if there's no structure to it, like, animals aren't gonna have a lot of structure to it. They're not. You don't see monkeys hitting like fucking.
I was gonna say
a fake shot into a foot sweep and then do a front flip.
I've never seen a chimpanzee do an Imanari. I've never seen
Like,
one.
you're not gonna see them hit like, you know, all these fancy like.
Kangaroos are gonna, they got like jab on them.
You know, they're out there headlocking each other and doing like the same, like, you know, you have to. They're also not sitting there communicating with each other about like, well, I learned how to do this move to my brother when I was clawing his face off, and then you can learn from.
Well,
this.
we're
Like, they're
amazed
not-
when we see those animals and we're like, oh, look at that, scramble. Well, of course it's scramble. They don't have a technique, you know. They're trying to do what's instinctual. Scramble is instinctual, right? If you tell the person stay on top, that's your only goal.
Right.
Scramble is
Everything
instinctual.
else, yeah.
Yes, whether they're gonna accomplish it or not, very much depends on athleticism, strength, and size. However, there are certain things that you can, like, you can take. For example, you take Mark, right? Mark is fucking strong, or Marcus, you know, strong, athletic. Both of them have one thing in common: former rugby players. That's the best fucking sport to develop athleticism towards grappling, I think.
Both
Anyway.
players are super tough.
Yeah.
They're in shape.
Yeah. So and so they have this athleticism in common and this strength, and their scrambling is good. So if you take them and you give them someone smaller, less athletic, and older, like me,
It's gonna be tough.
I'm not gonna be able to scramble with them unless I know I know specific things. For example, somebody comes to me and sees me scrambling, I'm like, look, you don't understand, I can't. I'm not, he's always going to be on top. No, he's not. If I aim to get around his hips and just chase his hips from above, he won't be on top. He will not. Maybe he'll get to his feet and I'll get to my feet too, and then it's probably going to take me down, but at least I'm not going to be on the bottom. It's my point here, right? So there is a technique to it, which I might be able to figure out, but if I'm not athletic, I'm never going to be able to, like, and I have those kind of handicaps, I will never be able to figure out on my own.
Right.
You know, there should be a way to do it, you know, at least once every 5 times, you know. Otherwise, I'll be stuck 0 out of 5 times.
Well, that's why jiu-jitsu is so beloved, because that's.
But there's a technique for everything, right?
Helped it out, yeah.
There's a little bit of a pivot, but one thing that kept coming up in that debate was the idea of like perfection, striving for like drilling, you're doing something and trying to achieve this like perfect position, and Greg is making the argument that there's no such thing as perfection,
right.
There's too much variability.
What does a perfect position mean though? To me, what a perfect position is, like what you were talking about having a feel. The more I've done something, I've gotten to a point where I'm just like, I know if I've got it, just by how it feels, because I've done it so many times.
Right, the feel.
That's what I would consider is close to what perfection is. It's not a specific.
Feeling, I think you get from live training, mostly. I think you can get a little bit from drilling, but I think that's mostly going to come from.
And what I'm calling drilling
live.
is kind of doing the thing, but like, kind of what we were talking, like, oh, well, how does this feel? Could you get out of it then? Okay, kind of like a drilling like that, but like an active drilling, but doing it until I'm comfortable with it.
I
but I don't know what perfection is. Like, that's how Greg Souders can keep backing up the debate.
I'll give you an
wall.
example, but I'll give you an example though. You have a very strong Kimura grip, you. Have you ever been able to hold Marcos, for example, in a good Kimura, strong Kimura grip? I'm not saying finish a Kimura, because he's going to grab his hands and you can't really finish, but hold him there and like control him with the Kimura grip. Have you been able to? When you get to that Kimura grip? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But if
I would feel comfortable. I think I would feel comfortable.
But if you weren't, and nobody told you anything, and you didn't try it 100 times with him from that specific grip, you will not know what your actual perfect grip and what perfection is. And I'll tell you what the perfection there would be in this particular case because of size differential and the athleticism and his strength and all that stuff. And the fact that your Kimura grip is good, he's just stronger than you and bigger. Maybe you're using your thumbs, and that weakens you. And that's going to work against me, maybe it's going to work against him. It's not going to, like, our wrists are smaller, easier to grip. It's not going to work on him, right? Maybe if you didn't use your thumbs, your arm would be stronger, right? Because you're not going to have that weakness here. And that's what's going to make it a perfect situation for you, a perfect perfection.
But again, that's a perfect situation against that one opponent.
Well, no.
I don't think the move is... Because if it's against, like what you said, like against a smaller wrist, then I don't.
No,
then
still.
what I do is.
That's what you think.
I think you still want to do the grip that's more efficient because it'll even if you can hold them without doing it,
we're talking about the efficiency.
You're going to keep the grip for longer. It's not going to tax you as much.
We're talking about the efficiency. The bigger person is only going to amplify the lack of efficiency of the grip. The smaller person is going to give you a false positive there where you're going to be able to finish it because you're just stronger than them, and this grip is just making you...
that grip... So this grip is not efficient at all, so then what
well, not for the situation that I'm talking about.
Just like maybe there's a way that you're grabbing it. I don't mean you as in you, but like you as in the general, all these idiots I'm watching.
All 0 of them, right?
All of them.
I can name them.
No, like maybe there's a way you're gripping it that's not the most efficient way, and there's a way that's a little bit more efficient, and it can work on someone that's either not resisting as much or they're just too weak to even
So the
attempt to break
perfect move
it.
is going to work on everybody.
Well,
It should.
no. Actually, no.
Because I
For sure, no. Absolutely not. There's
that's
a
why I just
limit.
think
There's a limit
perfection
on size.
just means I don't think it's.
Well, there are variables, but you should get to it.
I think we strive for perfection, but it's like an
Right.
is an absolute because Greg Soder's can use that perfection being an absolute to his advantage because he's talking about theoretical
Yeah.
things that I think when you start to get pragmatic about it, that absolute starts breaking down
I
into
say-
case by case. Now it might be 9 cases out of 10.
So I don't think that perfection is really what's being strived for.
I don't think so either.
I don't think that's what you're getting out of like drilling.
I don't think there's any such thing as perfect.
No, there's not.
That's
I
why it's
agree.
like I'm
agree.
kind of like I guess we need to define our variables.
Perfect is under no variables, under no resistance conditions. Perfect becomes
Okay, but it doesn't.
perfect then.
Okay, that doesn't exist in the real world.
It doesn't. But if you don't know how to do it perfect, what makes you think you're gonna do it imperfect with variables and
I
resistance?
agree, but there's no perfect
So,
in the real world. Is what I'm saying.
One thing that I don't think the idea of perfect is really that useful. You're not when you're using drilling. There's an argument that you're trying to make the movement more perfect. You're trying to strive towards perfection, and that's going to translate to you doing it in a live setting. And Greg is saying that when you practice a move in a non-live setting, it doesn't translate to a live setting. And I do agree with that.
I do
actually do agree
too,
with that.
to a point.
What I think that drilling gives you is it teaches you like what you're looking for. Not like showing you what's perfect, but when I'm doing a move, like let's take a rear triangle. And I learned that through a freaking DVD with someone from Danner or Gordon or whatever. And like I didn't have someone teach me the move. I just saw it on a DVD and I had to figure it out. He's telling me certain like objectives that I'm trying to get to.
Like bring the elbow above the ear
You,
rather
like,
than here.
Yeah, the arm position.
And
The arm,
the leg
the
go
arm
down.
can't be here because then it's going to be able to press against the leg. They'll be able to create some space and the choke may not work. So you want it to be over their head in a weak position where it's not interfering with the choke. You want the alignment of your leg relative to their neck to be correct so you're not applying force in a non-effective manner. You're trying to direct force in a way that's efficient and actually applying the strangle. But when you're learning these moves through drilling, you're learning what are those things you're looking for. It's like a check. When I'm rolling, I'm looking for like a check box. And if I'm in a triangle and it is a triangle, right? Like I'm in a trap triangle. I've got my legs around a head and an arm. Now I'm looking through my checklist. Is my knee in the right position? Do I have the correct control over their arm? Are they getting up? Are they starting to move away from me? I'm starting to lose it. If those check marks aren't there, I don't have the move and I don't have the green light to go for it. But if the check boxes are there, I have the green light. Now I go for the move. Sometimes it doesn't work because maybe their neck is a little like, maybe my legs are too long and their neck is too small. Maybe they're just like really fucking hard to choke. Is their
Body types and compatibility, I
yeah,
guess.
like whatever. Maybe the things all look right, but there's some tightness. Like a few inches is off, and it's not going
Yeah.
to work, and I have to let go of it because I had the green lights, but it didn't work out. But I have those check marks. I have those like, I'm looking at a move and I'm trying to
But
figure
this
out.
is what instruction gives you, right?
Yeah,
This
this
is
is what
what
it
this
gives
is
you.
what no resistance drilling gives you.
Yeah.
You look for those, and it doesn't take. People
That's
are
not
like
perfection.
people are making big deal out of it. Oh, you're gonna waste so much time drilling. No, you don't waste so much time drilling it without resistance. You need maybe 10, 12 reps if you understand the technique. 10, 12, 15 reps if you understand the technique.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it,
5 to 20.
yeah, that's it.
That's
5
all
to
you
20,
need.
depending on what it is, really.
And how experienced you are.
Correct, how
and, like,
experienced you are and
have
all
you
that.
done a similar move?
But then what it requires is variability in that. So then you're gonna get the same guy and you tell him, well, let's try this. Why don't you open your elbow a little bit and let me finish from there? And then you're like, oh, I can't finish it from there. Speaking of triangle, let's say, right? Front triangle, for example. I can't finish it from there, but what if I change the angle a little bit? Now I know that I have to change the angle, but how do I do it? And it's like little things that now you have to, but you're still walking around the 3 check boxes that you mentioned, you know? You have to have your hamstring here, and all that stuff. You have to be you have to cover the shoulder with your other leg. All that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So those are the check boxes that you have to look at. The variabilities are going to allow you to stick to them, or the variabilities are going to force you to stick to those check boxes, and that's where the live drilling comes. But if you don't have the check boxes, which is apparently how Greg Saunders teaches, if you don't have the check boxes, then it's going to take a hell of a long time to learn something, unless you stumble upon it by...
There's a lack of direction.
Right.
And I think direction, I don't mean that his teaching has a lack of direction. I mean that if you don't understand what you're trying to go for, especially with submissions, but I think a sense of direction is so fucking important.
I think...
Just to
Yeah.
make one point, one of the most powerful things that ever happened to my jiu-jitsu was learning the back. Really working with you on it.
I remember...
When we were blue belts.
Yeah.
And we got that back DVD from Dan Hurt. That...
Remember when we did it in the park during COVID?
yeah.
That's crazy.
Um,
I had mats. We went to the park.
That's dope.
We went
dude,
to the
don't
park.
sell us out like that. That's supposed to stay between us.
What happened in the park stayed in the park.
Yeah, exactly, bro. What the fuck? But seriously, like learning that
I remember.
completely changed my jiu-jitsu. Completely. Not necessarily because learning how to attack people from the back is like was the thing that changed it. That helped a lot. Being good at the back, knowing how to take the back, how to finish from the back. That's great. It's important. It gave me a sense of direction while I'm rolling to head towards
Yes.
that I didn't have before. Before I was just sitting in top side control waiting for you to make a mistake so I could like do one of the like 20, my game was just made up of like 50 counters from whatever random position. I was just waiting for like, okay, I'm gonna wait for this guy to give me the neck so I can go for it. Give me the arm so I can get this thing, and now I can go into my move. But I would just wait, and if you didn't give me anything, I wouldn't have anywhere to go. Learning the back gave me a sense of direction so that anywhere I was, I could ask myself, what do I need to do right now? Head towards the back. Didn't matter, like that'll literally answer every question.
And Danaher has a whole DVD on. It's one of the newer ones. It's called Get There Faster series, and the whole idea was how to become better faster or something like this.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was chase the back, and that's it. Like
I
no
think
matter
it's
what
the-
you do, chase the back, because the back is always going to be exposed unless they're laying down on their back, in which case you have a pin.
I think
Even then you
every
can force.
beginner, the first attack they need to learn is the rear naked choke.
That's what I did with my son.
That's the first thing they need to learn. They honestly don't need to know any other attack. That's the first attack they need to learn, and then they need to learn positional skills.
Yeah.
And then they can find out about some other moves, because it's the only objectively non-negotiable skill you need to have as a grappler.
It's the only.
It's a non-negotiable. You have to be good at rear nakeds. It's not. If you're not good at rear nakeds, you're not good at jiu-jitsu. Like, it's just a straight up. You need to be good at this move, or you can't do submissions. It's a very like A or B thing for me. In my opinion, I think that there's a few other moves that fall into that, but that's not as objective of a thing. I think that's more my opinion. I think the head and arm choke from mount is a move that's pretty like.
Because it can lead to the back.
It's just really important to the game of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Like, it's not just an important submission. It's an important submission for having a game. Like,
Right.
you need to be good at the rear naked for your game's sake, not for the sake of the rear naked. You need it so that you have a direction. You're trying to take the dude's back. I think the evolution I've made is that I should be trying to do it while staying on top instead of staying for the back.
Right.
But still, I'm trying to create back exposure to get a rear naked. That's the main goal.
You mean staying on? That's what we're talking about.
Flattening
Putting
them
it flattening them
out.
out.
Yeah.
Face down.
I
We
think
did the other
that's
day.
an important.
Back mount.
I think that's an important evolution.
Back mount.
Yeah, I think that's an important evolution.
That's
But-
interesting.
That's like the core of jiu-jitsu.
It's funny because that's what Hickson Gracie has been preaching for a very long time.
That's all he did, pretty much.
Instead of taking their back, get on top, get that gift wrap thing, and then turn him down, face down, and then he finished a bunch of fights like that in Japan. But they'll give you the neck. Like if we're talking jiu-jitsu, they'll give you the neck, right? So that's for me personally, it was the mount, and I was headed towards the back thing. Even when I competed last, I finished the matches with back control and submission and stuff like this. But the thing is, so I was aiming for that. And then I had my knee problem, and I just couldn't do the back because I can't hold the back with, I first of all I was never able to lock a body triangle on most people, right?
I have hard.
So I had to rely a lot on knees flexibility, not necessarily flexibility, but kind of strength and it was very hard for me. Interestingly though, because it's a meniscus in its lateral movement that I was kind of like having problem with, that was the thing, I couldn't do that kind of squeeze because of that, right? And then also people would fall to one side and they fall on my knee, and it's really hurting. So I had to literally ignore the back for like a year, maybe a year and a half. But what I did discover is that I didn't hurt going to the mount at all, because I could be on my knees, and then from there, and I started going to the mount because I needed a dominant position, right? Like you, I was like, I started going to the back when we started drilling and stuff like this, and then I stopped, and then I'm like, I gotta do something. I cannot do it, right? I can't just play by ear and do whatever happens, I need to have a direction. So I started going to the mount, and for me, the mount became my strongest position, right? And I'm always trying to get there, and it's my philosophy that if I can continue and get to the mount, I should be able to take your back from there if you want to give it to me. If I put you under enough pressure and duress that you're going to decide to turn, just like in MMA, like they do, but you don't do that strikes. And the head and arm became the arm triangle became a big part of that because you're isolating arms.
It's the central attack for mount.
Central attack. Now it's becoming the Kimura gift wrap. A lot of it from the mount, right? So I started isolating the arms, and I stopped taking the head and arm choke, just so that I can get to, so I could practice that and get to the Kimura and turn them belly down and start taking the back and all that. So
for me now, taking the back is like it's not quite fair to say this, but like the worst case scenario now. Like, that's not what I don't want to.
Because you're
chair
not
sit.
aiming for it.
I don't want.
Oh,
that.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Like going to sit
Yes.
on my back and pulling you on top of me. That's like everything else failed, and I just need to continue the chain of attacks.
Right.
Or maybe you outbalance me.
But it's
even
crazy-
worse,
it's
and
crazy
now
because-
I have to be underneath you instead of on top of you.
Right. I think the same way. And that's what we were talking about the other day, right? But I think the same way. The crazy thing is that when you watch the very highest levels of no-gi grappling, and I say no-gi because in the gi there's a lot of like variations there where you can go for different, you don't really need to take the back. You can really finish somebody from modified mount. You don't need to take it to roll back. But in no-gi, Gordon, Dan Manasso, Luke, pretty much the whole of New Wave and the whole of B Team rely exclusively on, not rely exclusively, but exclusively aim Giancarlo, aim for taking the back and finishing from the back. I'm talking about back control, not back mount, which is exactly what we're trying not to do, It's crazy because it works at the highest of the highest levels,
Do you see back mount live?
I mean, you don't see it a lot, but when it happens, it's usually like a game changer for,
It's
like,
hard to get. Like it's especially like when I first started doing it, because we were watching, like Craig started releasing instructionals on it, and there's
So
stuff.
the back leg ride, no? It started
Yeah.
with the leg ride, I think, and
There's been stuff on it out there before, but I think he really added the most technique, like technical details to it of anybody to that point. I remember, like years ago, I really wanted to figure out how to do it, and this Hickson Gracie black belt on YouTube was teaching like offered gift wrap.
right.
You-
I've seen that.
Yeah, I think he had like long black hair or something, right? He's very
He-
buff dude.
He says isn't he from Oklahoma? No,
I don't know. I can't remember.
he's
but-
from Oklahoma, and he was yes, that's right, and he said correct.
But
he was-
that's literally the only video I could find.
Yes,
Because
and
I was searching everywhere.
he was
at one
showing
point.
exactly how Hickson was doing it, and correct. So it's kind of like the old-fashioned way and all
Yeah.
that, without much like
There
without
just
much
wasn't-
variability.
There wasn't
You know?
like a lot of different paths and details to it.
But I gotta believe something else. I've heard things about Hickson's top pressure and control, and I have to believe that if Hickson gets you in there and he wants to put your belly down, I don't care how good you are, you probably are going belly down because of how good he is. You know, unless you're like
He was also
250, 60 pounds. You
he's
know?
also doing it in MMA, and in MMA it's easy.
Well, no,
to
I'm
get
talking
that to
about
happen.
jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I'm talking about jiu-jitsu though. I firmly believe that he may have been doing it at will because of his skill level, you know. But I also think that the game has evolved and less people are gonna fall for it. Like there is ways to counter it, of course, and
You can make it hard to do, but then like when I first learned it, it was a lot easier to put people in it. And when I roll with somebody that's not as familiar with my game, it happens a lot. When I roll with like after enough time rolling with you, you know that's what I'm trying
oh
to
yeah,
go
remember
for.
when we were trying to get we went as far. I remember this one time we went to the back mount like this, the back mount, and he had his legs in different positions, like double in, double hooks, and then one leg out, one leg in, and I was trying to push off, and sometimes it was very easy, and then we had to change the leg position. Then it was controlling this arm. If you control this arm, how do you get your arm to choke and stuff like that? So we went like literally dissected it step by step to get to what's the best. And in fact, I still maintain to this day that what works for you, and I know that the way you like to do it, doesn't work for me. And I think that it has to do with the difference in the length, because he can do, when he straddles you from back mount, he can use his legs to literally splay your legs wide open, and I can do it to some extent, but not. I know that because when I go with smaller guys than me, I can do it too. but I'm not as good at it specifically as he is, because I don't really do it that often. He does it to everyone almost, right? Probably. So when you get there, you do the same, like legs technique to almost everyone.
Depends. I think that 2 hooks is the best.
2 hooks down.
I think 2 hooks in is the best. But that's only if they kind of have to give it to you in some kind of way. If they just lay on their side, you can't get it. But if they try to like turn to their knees or bridge you off, and they create some space in between their hip and the floor, you can sometimes slide it in. I do think 2 hooks is the best. I don't think a body triangle is very good. I like my version because it creates a lot of knee-elbow separation.
Yeah.
It really strains out their body. And my favorite one is using the fist in the armpit thing, pushing the elbow out and forcing them belly down that way, and then grabbing the chin, lifting it in the opposite direction of the hook.
See, I'm not.
To me, that's like
I've
the
tried
best
that,
way.
and I know, because you got me, and I've tried it. In fact, I tried it just the other day on somebody, and it doesn't work for me as well. I have very weak wrists, and it just doesn't. I don't feel strong there at all. I really prefer to use a nice gift wrap, kimura gift wrap, and then pull and open. And
That
do
was
it.
painful when
It-
you
yeah.
showed me that it was.
Right, it's only
it
meant
was
to be
rough.
nice for one person at a time.
It was rough.
Yes.
I do
It's
that
like the
or
wrist
the
locks.
claw grip, usually.
The claw grip, yes.
Or
and-
sometimes even just like a rear naked grip.
Yeah.
And just like, it,
Because it
there's,
stretches,
there's,
yeah.
there's like not a single way to do any of these moves nicely.
Yeah.
They all
The
suck.
claw is like has the same effect as the gift wrap. Right?
Yeah, the meanest one to me is just the rear naked grip, because the only way you can make it happen is by like ripping their head
Yeah.
backwards. It's the meanest one, but like, you know, you guys.
It's only meant to be nice for one person at a time.
Yeah.
No, these are, have you played around with the one I showed you that I got from Sean Williams, with the gift wrap kimura and then put your head on the floor and open them up?
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't since we worked on
Yeah.
it, but I like that one.
Yeah, it's been working for me. Does it always work? No. But
Nothing always works.
when it works, you insert both hooks and when it works, you know that there is like, it's the end of the line there.
Yeah, nothing
Right.
always works.
Yeah.
That's just like that's just it's
The
not.
general rule.
It. If something always worked, you would only need one move.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, Rhonda went on a tear.
Yeah.
Yeah, she went on a tear. I mean,
And it was different arm locks.
I mean, like, there's having one move that you do in a lot of different ways, and then there's just doing one thing. You
The
know?
thing about
Like,
Ronda Rousey also is that she's a judoka, right? Olympic level and all that stuff. She had to adjust her judo to a specific situation where she. Remember, in MMA you have to cut the distance. There is no grips. You can't rely on grips and then off balance them and stuff like this. You can't really off balance them in MMA unless you know, either hit them.
You have to be
or-
in a clinch.
You have to be in a clinch, or you have to maybe give them a fake. You have to be good at stand up. You can off balance them a little bit and then get to the clinch. But she wasn't good at stand up, right? So
she's not a Muay Thai fighter.
right, so she would have to get in the
hands.
clinch. But once she gets in the clinch, she knows what she's doing. So she really adjusted her judo to work for MMA, and I think that this is like what GSP did with wrestling in MMA. And I think that this is like a big thing that you can that you have to, because there is a lot of like, I mean a lot, I don't know how many, but there is a lot of people that are specialists, especially in jiu-jitsu. That's like a common problem. A lot of like high-level jiu-jitsu people, specialists, and they just don't make it into MMA. Like I know Marcelo Garcia has done MMA. I know Jean-Jacques Machado has done MMA.
He did MMA.
Yeah, and it's
Oh,
funny
no,
to
no
watch.
one was happy
All the
about
old
it.
school guys.
Marcelo, it was
And-
awful.
And you can't.
bad, yeah.
Marcelo Garcia's takedown, the arm drag with it, was like super effective for.
It's just a different
for-
sport.
For grappling. You're not
Yeah.
gonna get anybody with that because you can't get to the arm drag.
Yeah, and the punches to the face was bad for it.
I might be not thinking about it correctly, but in my mind, Gilbert Burns is like one of the most successful.
Well, that's because he's
Jiu-jitsu guys?
wrestling. Because he's wrestling.
Like I would say he's the
got
most.
good enough. He's got good enough hands too that
He's
he
got
can
good
open
hands,
up.
but his wrestling is crazy
Maybe
too.
maybe successful isn't the right word because he hasn't been a champion
Right.
or anything, but
He's
I think
done-
he's
he's
contender.
he is
represented.
the highest. He's the best at MMA of any of the jiu-jitsu guys I've seen.
I can make an argument. I can think of Damian Maia in these later years when he actually had takedown game because he had a mean single leg takedown in
But
his later years.
I agree, but he's not. Gilbert Burns is very well-rounded,
Correct.
like extremely well-rounded. He is like the best MMA guy.
Oh, I see what you're
But
saying.
he actually went and took the time to be good at MMA.
Yeah.
He's not just like, okay, I'm a
100%.
jiu-jitsu guy, I'm gonna make this work. No,
Yeah.
he will knock you
Gary
out.
Tonin tried.
He'll-
He was on the path, but he kind of.
What about
Didn't
Charles
make it.
Oliveira?
He's an
Very good
MMA
stand.
guy though.
I
Yeah.
mean, no, I think he's primarily jiu-jitsu guy.
He started. I mean, I think there's a difference between
He's a-
starting as a jiu-jitsu guy and then doing MMA. Because then you could say that about Brian Ortega. You could
I
say
mean,
that
Gilbert
about-
Burns was a jiu-jitsu world champion, like with a gi on.
Yeah. Charles Oliveira is a high-level jiu-jitsu guy. Like
He
he's
is,
not only
but
from
he's-
not
he
only from
started-
I don't think he was a
But he
professional
started in
jiu-jitsu
MMA
guy.
at very young age.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
and
he's
Gilbert
been there forever.
transitioned like
From
fairly
jiu-jitsu.
late. In
I see what you. I
Like-
see your point.
But Gilbert was
of a
just
guy-
nothing. I mean, he was ADCC a couple years. He was
Yeah.
a jiu-jitsu dude. That
I don't know
did
at
nothing
what
but
age he
jiu-jitsu.
started, but he was already a very like
It was pretty
developed
late.
jiu-jitsu
Remember,
athlete.
he fought Gary Tonin. Well,
Yeah. In
he-
Polaris?
that was
Wasn't it
before
Polaris?
Polaris.
Yeah, I think
think
so.
that was before he started MMA.
Yeah, yeah.
Like as he was training for it.
Right.
I think as it was training, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Dylan Daniel.
He got drafted by the GFL for
Jim
the
Dylan
New
Daniel?
York team. The GFL draft was a joke.
Should I say the name? Starts with a K. Ends with an N. Is it Gracie?
Crumb. Oh yeah, of course, Crumb Gracie, of course. I have no fucking. Look, Crumb Gracie can fuck me up any day he wants to. That doesn't make him any better at MMA. That just goes to show that I'm not good at it. But
Yeah.
but
I wonder if it's
I
He
think
was
that,
good in Japan.
He was
in
big in
Rising.
Japan. He was big in
He's-
Japan.
Rising.
Big in
he's
Japan.
taken, in my opinion, what is the very worst approach for a jiu-jitsu guy in MMA, which is I'm going to learn how to box. Sure, you're going to learn how to box better than anybody in MMA. You're going to learn to box so good that they have to shoot on you, so that then you can counter with jiu-jitsu. That is
It never
the
worked.
app that can only work if boxing is your primary skill.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
be good.
Then you can counter wrestle, but boxing has to be like you have to be the best striker in MMA, and that honestly can only take you so far. Like Israel Adesanya, I think, is facing that issue of like
Yeah.
he was the best striker in
That's
MMA.
what we're still waiting to see with.
Hamza?
No. With Hamza, we've seen it. I mean, we've seen his stand up, we've seen his wrestling, we've seen his submission game and all that stuff. No, Alex Pereira. That's what we're still waiting to see, how he would handle an actual wrestling. What's the word?
We'll see.
Well, no,
Against
I don't
this-
think
against this
Israel.
guy.
Israel's not running into the problem of he's facing people that are better at wrestling than him, and that's why he's losing. He's losing on the feet.
Oh, he started losing on the feet, but
Like, he's-
but he lost.
He got
lost in-
submitted last time.
He got.
He did,
lost.
but he's
But he
not.
got-
but
he
he's
got
not
beat up.
dominating on the
Yeah.
feet.
But he's
It's because he is.
Sean Strickland
He's
beat him.
finally reaching. Yeah, I mean, Sean Strickland beat him on the feet.
Sean
when
Strickland.
He
well,
lost to Pahea, obviously.
Yeah.
He lost to Strickland purely on the feet. Purely.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no wrestling involved in that. And then even the really racist guy, the South African.
He's not. He's not really racist.
He's
I
from
don't-
South Africa.
Yeah, he's from South Africa.
There's no way he's not.
Yeah.
It's in his blood. He
Well,
lost
I mean,
Yeah,
he plays the game enough. He
Yeah.
plays the game good enough.
but you know, even he was doing pretty good with him on the feet. I'm not saying
Yeah.
he like dominated him the way that Strickland did, but he's running into the problem where he's no longer the most dominant striker
Right.
in MMA.
Right. I see what you're saying.
And now he needs a little bit of. He's got two directions. He could either regain the position of being the best striker in MMA, which
That's
I don't
not
know
going that-
I don't know
that's
how
not
he can
gonna
do that because he's already like as
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
he's basically as good as he's going to get on the feet.
Yeah.
This may be like small improvements. The other direction is like become good at grappling.
He's not gonna do that.
But
either.
You could do
When
that.
he
I think.
lost
There's
his
more
title,
room.
Didn't-
There's more room.
I
Didn't
don't
he
think
lose
he
his
will.
title against the was it Polish guy or Russian guy? What's his name? When he-
Jan Blachowicz?
Yeah, Polish guy.
He tried, yeah.
Took him down.
I
Took
think
him
that's a
down.
size difference. though.
And
That was
that
yeah.
was a size
He
difference.
was
too,
definitely undersized. For
I think
that
that's a
fight.
But he kept
size
getting taken down over and over again. You know, it's also the other thing is he didn't show any skill in terms of defense.
Yeah.
Although he did show a lot of skill in even when he went against Whitaker took him down continuously. Just couldn't keep him down, and
Yeah.
he couldn't damage him. Let's say. But speaking of taking down and stuff like this, that Mighty Mouse podcast with Islam, there is a separate episode from the podcast where they actually trained together.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you watch that?
Yeah.
Did you notice that the way they trained was they had stations and everybody was training, and that's a lot of it is for like durability and conditioning. But one of the disciplines that they were doing was Greco-Roman. Only Greco-Roman. They had a Greco-Roman guy there, and they were doing specifically Greco-Roman. And Greco-Roman is great for MMA, and it's underutilized, I think, in terms of, because it's not big in the United States.
Right.
It's underutilized, and that's a big thing that
The
can't
most successful wrestlers in MMA historically.
Randy
Greco.
Couture was Greco.
Randy, yeah.
Chael Sonnen was
John
Greco.
Jones.
John Jones.
John
is
Jones.
like
Yeah.
the most dominant wrestler.
The thing
ever
is that
in
the thing is
MMA.
that it's a clinch. It's a clinch game.
Yeah, it's all
It's a
clinch.
clinch game. It's
The thing that like there's a big the most I'd say the most important skill set in freestyle wrestling would be hand fighting to the shot.
yeah.
That's where they live and die. That's where the mastery is. That's where like 90% of their mastery is in. And when you do MMA, almost all of that just is no longer useful.
Well, but
Almost.
that's why combat sambo relates so well, and not just combat
That's-
sambo, regular sambo too relates
Yeah.
so well to sports sambo is basically judo and wrestling in one. Judo the old way, if you want to call it that way. Combat sambo is like MMA with headgear, headbutts,
And the-
no chokes,
the padding.
and shin. Yeah,
And
but
the
they
kicks.
still do. Everything is it's MMA essentially with certain restrictions
It's-
and no cage, right?
They also like those guys have a heavy emphasis on upper body throws.
Right, the judo part of
Right.
the sambo, right? That's the judo part of sambo. It was heavily influenced by judo, and here's the reason why. Historically, sambo was developed, I should say, during I believe right when communism took over in the 1920s anyway. The reason they actually wear the gi is because their military wears those, they call them kurtka, and it's a fucking jacket, a military jacket. It looks like a shirt, and they were looking for some type of combat skill to add to their army. So they hired, there was Russian guys who did judo and stuff, like, there were Russians, like champions and all that stuff, who did judo and wrestling, and they combined both. You know, I think there were 2 or 3 people that developed the sambo, and they combined both of those, the Russian, the wrestling and the judo, and it became one. Then it went from, there's like 3 types of sambo as far as I know. One is the sports sambo, which is that. Then there's combat sambo, which is like MMA, and then there is military sambo, which is like, I don't even know what the fuck that is. It's like, there's some knives and stuff.
What's the difference between? I've only seen combat sambo
Oh, sports sambo is like judo
with no punching.
Yeah, it's like like the grappling, like judo with no. They still do the shorts. There's judo
Oh, I'm
with
saying
no.
there's no punching in it.
No.
So that's the only difference. Okay, so the difference is
It's
you
grappling sport.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can
And
go for the
combat
legs.
is-
You can go for the legs.
Okay.
There's a lot of throws and stuff, but also what they have is spinning. And actually, I was talking with remember our Ukrainian friend. What's his name? Nate. He used to come here. Nate. Yeah. He told me that he thought the reason why sambo people also, like even sports sambo, is so relatable to MMA is because when you take him down, you have to hold him down, and there's the points. The way you score the points is you take him down and you get, like, let's say 1 point for every 4 seconds you keep him down, or every 5 seconds you keep him down. If you keep him 20 seconds, you win the match outright. So pin him down, right? So if you can take somebody down and pin them down for 20 seconds, for MMA, that's
Is that just
amazing.
them being on the ground?
Right? Can
Yes,
they like be
yes.
moving?
Is it like, do they have to be on their back like in wrestling?
There is something. No, not on the ground. They have to be on their back somehow. But I don't know
So
exactly.
if they're
how-
like on their stomach, it doesn't count as a
It doesn't count. That's where folk style comes in very handily, right?
So they can't be scooting.
No, there is but the skill of
They're like on
pinning.
their side.
The skill of pinning, yes. You have to pin both their shoulders. I'm not sure about the exact rule of that, but I know that you get a point per X amount of seconds. So
That's where I think those sports start to have some limitations, is when their idea of controlling somebody on the ground is purely based on pinning both shoulders to the mat.
Right, but
I
that's-
think it's a massive limitation.
it is a limitation, but it's better compared to what freestyle wrestling offers, which is lack of control once they get to the ground.
Right,
because
just for a heartbeat.
remember, in freestyle, you get points for back exposure. So what they do is they won't even defend the fucking double leg, like with the sprawl and stuff. They will defend it with a chest wrap in order to, like how they did that
Reverse
to
it,
Burroughs.
Jordan Burroughs.
They'll get it so that they can actually throw you back and get the points, and then they let you go. And there is no control after the actual point scoring,
Yeah.
right? Which is unlike folk style
It
where
looks
there's
cool,
riding,
though.
That's
right?
my problem with judo too. Actually, is that like you can win the match with the opponent.
Yeah,
Like you just outright win if you throw them in a certain way. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might need.
yeah. I don't know it
differences.
either, but I understand
But-
what you're saying.
But they could throw in a way where they get rolled over,
yeah,
and they still just automatically win the match. I
Right.
don't.
Yeah,
I'm sure that I'm coming
that's
from a
not
place
to
of
say that any of
ignorance.
those sports are not effective in
Yeah, it's
MMA. It's just that
The sport
they have to
version of
be
it.
they
There's
have to
just
be
some, like-
adapted. The adaptation to
Yeah.
MMA
There's
has
some
to take
training scars
yes.
that can happen.
Correct. And
Same thing with like in jiu-jitsu, because it's okay to go to our back. There's a training scar that happens in jiu-jitsu where people relinquish top control way too easily.
Yeah.
Way too easily. And MMA, that's like you need top position. Top position is so valuable because you had to risk getting kicked or kneed in the face on the way in, and then drag the guy to the ground. That might take a lot of energy. So you risk getting knocked out. You risk the energy expenditure just to hold them down, and then you're gonna just roll you back.
yeah,
You know, like no, it's worth so fucking much. You need to keep it. It's the most important thing in MMA grappling is once you drag someone down to the floor, you need to keep them there.
I think that's where folk style wrestling and Khabib's late father would say that
Abdul
folk style would be the most optimal style of wrestling or grappling for MMA because they actually do the riding. You know, they get they get
point for it.
they get point for
Rewarded for
one,
it.
yeah. But they also the riding and the pinning is big. In freestyle, there's a pins are almost accidental. You know, they happen because the guy falls on his shoulders and then you're like, oh yeah, shit, I got him. But they don't happen because you ride him because
I'm so ignorant at that freestyle folk style is saying.
the freestyle is the international
I only-
style.
Freestyle is like
I just know the difference between Greco and then the ones where you can grab the legs.
No,
that's
There's
the
a
only
difference
but
between
freestyle
like
is the
high
international.
school and like or college.
Yeah, that's the
And
folk style,
international.
the American style, and then there's the international, which is freestyle. In freestyle
Folk
is
style
where
is
you
American style. That's what you learn
Folk
in high
style,
school.
right? High
Yeah,
school, high
And
school,
that's what you do in
college.
college.
That's where you start in a referee position. You ride in leg riding. There is like tilts. There, you know, it's you try to put them on their back and pin them, but in the
That's in
process,
folk style.
in folk style, they are trying to get up. When they get up and get free, they score a point. You know.
That's
And
in both. Oh, that's in
no,
folk style.
In folk style, in freestyle, they don't get
Yeah.
up. In folk style, they actually splay out, so you don't turn them over.
Right.
You don't roll them. Remember, because when you
Freestyle's-
roll them, you score points with the gut range or leg raise.
Freestyle is the one where all you need to do is just gator roll 50 times.
Right.
Just automatically.
4 times
Yeah.
really after you take them down. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. In freestyle, you're actually you're
That's a silly
incentivized.
skill.
You're
That's
incentivized.
a silly skill.
You're incentivized to crucify yourself on the ground like this and make
Yeah.
yourself very heavy with your legs wide open, so they don't leg lace you and they don't gut
Yeah.
range you and all
Like
that
Gordon
stuff.
against Pat Downey.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did
Gordon
it.
did the three-quarter Nelson and broke him, and then old
Yeah.
boy just rolled
Right,
him across. So cheesy. I wouldn't even been proud of that.
Yeah. And it was
You rolled
and
me
that was
across.
freestyle. I would have been very
It would've
curious
been,
to
if it was
see
folk style, that would have been way better.
I would have been very. I'm not
Pat
saying
Downey
that
probably would have crushed him
Pat
still,
Downey would still would have beaten him under those rules.
but it would have been.
Yeah.
It would have looked as cheesy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's just a silly. I can't begin to understand why that's a
I don't know. It's
why that's part of the sport. Why it's valued.
And it usually doesn't happen like
back
that.
exposure because you expose their back to the ground.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know, but that's the rule, and
I mean,
I'm
there's silly things in every sport. Like jiu-jitsu, what we consider being past the guard and being in guard is pretty stupid.
you can be you could be in half guard chest to chest with a
Like
crossface and an
quarter-
underhook, and you're in a very good
Well,
position.
like-
Or quarter guard.
Quarter guard, it's mount. It's mount.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
call it quarter mount.
Like it's not guard.
Half
but
guard-
you
half
can
guard-
just put your foot I tell all of the guys that are going to compete this.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's part of the rules. So
It was
don't
like
abuse
Gordon
it.
against.
Yeah. Put your foot back in.
But
and-
if you
and-
put your foot in, you're back in guard, and you can start racking up all those
Yeah.
points again. It's
Who
the
did he do
silliest
that? Who did he
shit.
do that to you?
to Yuri.
Yuri.
Yeah. The
It's so stupid.
the quarter mount, they call it quarter mount.
Also,
with the
leg
right-
rides are still, you're still in guard. You didn't pass.
No,
You're in a leg
yeah,
ride.
true.
And that's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
That's
but
straight up stupid.
but
A leg ride, there's like, to me, there's a clear, like, you could call half guard a leg ride.
you call it quarter mount is like right.
It
too.
is, yeah, it is. But like, you could call half guard, normal half guard, a type of leg ride.
You
It's
mean
a
with
bottom
the-
leg turn.
With the
Just no, any,
pass initial.
any, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I call that.
You could even
I-
call it knee shield.
I call it a half mount.
You
'Cause
could even
you're
call,
almost there.
no, you could call even with a knee shield a
leg ride? Yeah.
technically, but ignoring that, all the other leg rides involve having a lot of control over their
Like a
legs.
Turk?
A
Turk,
top
yeah.
leg Turk. You're like, I'm pretty sure if you're in a crab ride, you're past the legs. That's probably considered a guard pass, right?
If you're in a crab ride on their
Like,
yeah.
if you're in a leg drag and you just chill in the leg drag, do you get
No,
points?
you-
You have to clear the hips completely.
You have to.
I think
you
that
have
would
to
be 2 points.
establish.
Would
No,
that be a
yeah.
takedown?
No, if you're chilling, no. He's saying
If you're just chilling,
Oh,
in the
chilling
leg
in a leg
drag.
drag. Yes.
In the leg drag, like you don't finish it.
I don't think
Do you have to literally
You
let
have
go
to
of all
be-
the great control just
I
to
know.
score points?
you have to be in
Maybe I don't deserve
You
my
have to
black
be,
belt.
you have to be past their hips. You have to be past their hips in order to score. It's not just
Yeah.
not
I mean,
being
that's-
their legs, but you have to be
that's-
past their hips.
That's,
That's
like the
stupid.
first step of the score, I think, is the leg drag.
Yeah, right. But if you're
Like,
if
you
you
have
get
to-
the leg drag and you're chilling in the leg drag with your leg right in their leg,
I don't think you get scored for that.
no, you're
Yeah.
not
And
scoring
that's
for
dumb.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
dumb.
But
Because
it's
you
not-
are past their guard.
It's not a complete pass.
In my opinion, that's a complete pass. You're control, like, you can't move.
But you're still
you
yeah.
can't
I mean,
attack, you can't
I mean-
use your legs in any meaningful way. If the guy doesn't leave that position, the only option you have to get out is to turtle. It's literally the only thing you could possibly do, and it's a really bad decision because they're right on top of your legs. Like, you're past their guard.
yeah. I mean, I don't know.
They
There's-
don't have a
you
guard.
got to be past their hips. You have to be.
To me, a guard means that you can meaningfully use your legs to attack or off-balance your opponent.
Well, that's why north-south bounce is a guard pass too. If you go from guard straight to north-south, because
Yeah.
you're past their legs. You're,
Yeah, but to me, like, just being or like, you know,
but
the problem with the rule
correct. But
is that, and it's just so for properly for
But you're not
simplicity's sake.
you're not pinned. You're not pinned, and I don't mean shoulders on the ground. You're not pinned as in controlled, because you are controlled. You're
In
just
a
not.
leg drag?
No, you are controlled. You're just not pinned necessarily. Hear me out. If you go to, let's say, past the guard, turn around the pass or something, and you mess up the control a little bit or something, and instead of them regarding, they actually turtle. You're still past their guard, right? But the problem is that they turtle. And unless you flatten them out or take the back or something, if they recover back to guard, you're actually going to score an advantage because you almost passed their guard, but you didn't. So if you go to leg drag, maybe and they regard, you might score an advantage. Maybe that's the rule. I don't know.
I
But
think
you
it's
didn't
for, like,
quiet.
almost.
You didn't quiet. Yes.
Yeah.
You didn't quiet past
Yeah.
their guard.
According to the rules, you have it. I think it's silly that it doesn't count as a guard pass.
Yeah.
Because I think it is. This is actually a point that Craig makes in the DVD. When you're in the leg drag, you have better control than when you complete the pass. You have literal better control. Their ability to turtle, to escape, or to regard, or to attack you in any kind of way, doing the Brian,
Regarding is hard, yeah.
sorry Brian, the Horace arm bar
Yeah.
attack from bombs. You can't do anything in the leg drag.
He has a new move apparently, and doesn't want to show it to anybody. Cheers. He said so. Like,
What could you do from that, though?
From the leg drag,
Yeah.
start to
Wouldn't you
create
have to-
belly down back split.
you have to start advancing in a way.
You can start
Not necessarily
You can
advance to the guard pass, but I'm saying advance the position. So
You can
there's
start
no.
getting some upper body grips to start.
Is there
flattening
immediate?
them out.
Is there an immediate submission threat
If you flatten them out, you get to do the
if you
grenade.
flatten them out?
Yeah.
Is there any immediate submission threat besides? But to
You get-
flatten them
you get
out,
attacked on-
but to flatten
You
them
would-
out, you have to pass the.
You get
pass
attacked the heel
something.
hook.
But
That's what-
If you flatten them out, you're passed, right?
If you flatten them out, that
Then
means
you're-
you actually pass their hips, right?
I'm not saying it's
No,
like a
I mean,
neutral.
you're just literally like you could stay in the exact position, but you're just you
Corkscrew them.
You have like like you're in that leg drag, and then you gain a claw grip,
Oh yeah.
and then you just use butterfly hooks to
Uh-huh.
splay
Oh,
the
yeah,
legs
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
the side, and then you're literally not moving at all.
Flatten. Oh, you mean flatten them out like face down?
Yeah, yeah.
Face down. Yeah, I was
That's
thinking
why-
about flat. That's why you were thinking.
No,
flat
like
too.
belly down.
Flat on the back. Yeah, yeah. yeah.
That's the
On
attack
belly,
from
yeah.
there.
Yeah, yeah, correct. correct.
That's the
But
main
at that
attack.
point, oh, you.
Then you can attack
and,
the back.
And like what I'm saying is you literally.
But you don't even score the back points.
No.
You don't have the hooks.
No.
So yes. So that's what I'm saying.
And I mean,
so
it's okay. I think
It's
that's
kinda
fine.
like, I guess they would consider
You
like
have to-
you're in transition.
you have to draw a line somewhere. That's why
Yeah.
the hooks are there, and you say you have to score. You have to score the hooks in order to
Yeah,
score
that's
points.
fine. As long
because
as
there has
body
to be some
triangle
kind of.
counts, then yeah.
I agree with that because there has to be some kind of.
I agree.
You know, you got to draw the line somewhere and say, this is where the points start.
I agree. And I don't know how you
Same with the
could.
guard pass. You get past the hips.
I think the leg
Occupy
drag
this
is like
space and you're good.
objectively
Right.
past the legs. I think it's like very clearly objectively. I don't think anyone can make the argument that you're not past the leg already. But let's say it's like a top leg turn. I don't know how you write that in the rules where that's a guard pass without it getting very messy.
You mean like the leg ride that you like?
Yeah, the top
yeah,
leg turn
yeah.
from side control.
I mean, it's not a guard pass though.
It's not
No,
a guard
it's
pass.
I technically it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's
But,
not because
like-
you're entangled in their legs.
Yeah, technically it's not a guard pass, but like I'm in side control and I'm looking to hook your leg, and I
That
don't
is-
consider that you regarding.
That is
whatsoever.
another position that you do, and I find difficult for me to.
I love that position.
Yeah, I know. I find it hard for me, and
I've
and
never really
people
thought about
that-
doing a turk.
And people that roll with me a
it's
lot.
specific. It's not probably not what you're thinking.
Remember when I showed you I would get it from a duck under? I would do a duck under, go in the crotch, lift them up, and then as I dropped
Yeah.
them, I'd turk that leg.
Yeah, but that's a bottom leg turk though.
Oh.
He's
So,
talking
like,
about a top
think
leg
of like
turk in a.
think of like when you're trying to do the rolling back take from side control.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about basically.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
You hook their top leg, you turn them towards you. Let's say you're in side control. You turn them towards you and you hook the top leg, and then you're gonna truck roll. But instead of truck rolling, you're
Just
rolling.
stay there.
You're
I got it.
staying there.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about, and that's yeah. I've tried. Trust me, I've tried in all kind of like.
The people
just
that I roll
can't get
with-
it right.
Like regularly,
Yeah.
when they feel me grab their leg, they flatten themselves out and rip their fucking leg open,
Yeah, and then give
they
you-
fight me really.
Yeah.
You can really
really
get to the
hard.
mount very fast from there if you wanted to.
Well, I don't want to
I know.
usually because I don't have a good like.
You don't have an
I don't have an
yes,
underhook.
Yeah.
But like they fight really hard not to let me.
I've
go.
been working. I told you that
So
now.
that's it's that it like the fact that they're fighting it as hard as they can when they roll with me a lot tells you that it's really valuable.
Yes.
But in IBJJF, that's still considered not pass or guard because the guy is in between their legs and therefore he can attack.
Well,
you,
in IBJJF,
right?
in order
and
to
that's
have
just silly.
Yeah.
But
score
I-
from the mount, also you need to have both knees on the floor.
But you can't be
you
modified.
can't be in like S mount.
S mount does not score you.
That's so stupid.
It doesn't score you.
So
You
stupid.
mean the modified mount, right?
Yeah.
S mount I refer to as when you go for the arm bar. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
literally
Or
an S-
modified mount.
Modified
Either.
mount or technical mount is
Also
when
doesn't count.
doesn't count as a score.
Yeah,
So in
that's-
other words,
That's kinda-
if you
That's
go
stupid.
if you start going to the mount and I turn to my back, and you get to modified mount, until you take my back or flatten me out and put your knee on the floor, you don't score.
That's a hack for the bottom guy.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, it is a hack, but you expose everything then.
Yeah,
Really.
that's just
You're not
You
giving
ridiculous.
us
expose
the
your
points.
back and you, well,
Yeah.
not temporarily. If it's the end of the match and you're ahead on points, that is a hack.
I actually do think it's easier to escape from that,
From where?
from modified.
I mean, it's not that hard to escape.
I mean, it depends, but I think, like, if I can't kip, I think that's a better place to defend from than.
Oh, definitely.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, yes.
But that is dumb. Like that should score points.
But it also depends because it depends on how if let's say I was in a mount and I get a gift wrap on you, nice solid gift wrap with a Kimura grip like the way I like, and I turn you and I go to modified mount, it's very hard to escape at this point because you don't have your
Yeah, but
hands
there's
are not-
degrees within a position.
But if you're
right?
only with a seatbelt, it's not that hard to escape, right? A regular
Right.
seatbelt,
To
yeah.
me, there's like a configuration or a position,
Yeah.
and then there's degrees of like.
There's stages,
grips,
yes,
like,
stages to it, yes.
I could be in that top leg turn from side control with no grip on your upper body. That's like.
I know you do it very
that's-
well.
but that's like the worst. Like, that's like the
Is your hip
lowest
going
tier.
in?
No, it's literally just lifting your leg and dragging
Oh,
it towards you.
okay.
I'm trying to like pull your foot a little bit up to the sky, but mainly towards your face.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you bring their head close, right?
It depends.
You literally don't want them to extend their body. I mean, unless if they extend their body, then you gotta go
To mount.
Mount.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they
I go to quarter guard intentionally.
so you can get on the hook and stuff.
I go to quarter guard intentionally because I think that the quarter guard actually lets you pin their legs better,
Yeah.
and sometimes it lets me go back to the way I started doing this. I started doing this way before Craig's DVD actually. I just started learning how to use it better,
Uh-huh.
but I started using it because I learned the like.
Well, that's
The
what
rolling
that's how
back.
Gustavo teaches. Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned
Yeah.
the rolling back tape, and then after a while I realized it's actually really hard to escape from. So that whenever somebody put me in quarter guard and I felt like they were starting to get mount, I would just do the back step and just chill there.
Right. When you
And
start
like-
escaping the mountain.
And like I could just hang out there instead of rolling to the back.
Yeah.
For a long time I just rolled to the back, and then I realized I could just chill and not roll for the back, and then just go back to mount. It's like getting a good grip again.
That's I remember I was a white belt and Gustavo was teaching that even back then. Like minus the roll, you just kill their escape by putting yourself in quarter guard and then pin their top leg, sit on their top leg with your thigh.
I started dismounting to side control.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that when I did that, I could put so much weight on my knee that it was literally impossible
Right,
for
right.
me to regard.
Yeah.
And I could just chill there.
Yeah.
I would just wait there until that was doing the leg ride. I just didn't realize what it was and the options I had from there. And then I saw Craig's video. I'm like, oh shit, I've already been using that for a long time. But he's using it differently. He's not figure fouring his legs, which I think is actually better not to do. And he's getting grips on the upper body. And like, what I was gonna say a second before was like, me just being in that position in the top leg turn with no upper body grips is like the lowest tier
Yeah.
of that position. And then there's grades within it. I can get claw grip. I can get like a guillotine, like a chin strap kind of grip. I could get like a near side underhook. Get a far side underhook from it. I could start grabbing a Kimura. That's something a lot of people do is they start getting an underhook on me and they'll just give me
Yeah.
an easy access to the Kimura. But like there's grades within every position.
Right.
You know, like being in that side mount, that modified mount, whatever, technical mount. Like there's being in that position and then there's being in that position with the freaking gift wrap, you know.
For a
figure
black
four
belt,
gift.
your terminology really sucks. Just want to throw this out there,
I like it. It's very clear.
especially in your Japanese terminology. Pretty bad. How do you say wrist lock in Japanese?
Bukaki, Katame.
Tsubukaki.
Bukaki, Katame.
That's the first Japanese word ever he learned.
That's the only one. Only when you need to know. We're gonna put that in the Buddy movie.
Yeah, I know, right? No,
I've tried I try as much as possible to use like the most common terminology for any position. There's just sometimes I don't like how non-descriptive it is, so I'll have a different name for it. Like I don't like the routine
yeah.
as a name because it's just like I don't like names where you have to the name doesn't describe the move little,
Yeah, yeah.
and you have to now like, you know, attach a word to a move, and they have like no relationship because it's named after a dude.
So you don't mess with like 10th Planet.
I don't use their terminology. No. Besides like,
Like truck.
Well,
I mean, no,
Well,
I use a truck actually. I say a truck.
the
Although
10th planet.
like crucifix, I kind of like more, but I
That
don't.
sounds cooler.
But I don't use it because no one knows it.
What is it?
Leg crucifix.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I never heard that
I know
before.
that a wrestler's guillotine. That's what it's. The wrestlers call it guillotine.
For the twister, yeah.
The twister,
twister.
yeah. Well, yeah. But
But I do like calling it. I like the idea of calling it a leg crucifix because it's the exact same position as the regular crucifix. It's the same principle of you have back exposure behind
Yeah.
your opponent, but instead of controlling at the hips and shoulders, you're only controlling either to shoulders or at the hips. I like that name, but no one calls it that.
It
So I'm not
sounds
gonna.
hard.
I'm not gonna fucking reinvent the wheel.
well, you
I'm not
know.
gonna tell all my students because one thing I
Yeah.
get really annoyed at is when some other student comes into the gym and they're like, well, I thought that was called this. I'm like, just because your asshole teacher called it some
Yeah.
random fucking name.
Yeah.
Does it like,
Bullshit.
there's lots of names for everything. I throw out 3 or 4 different names for modified mount because people have different names for it.
Right.
So I use all of them, and I wish we had only one name for it, but we don't. Some people call it some random. I'll have somebody be like, "Do you know this move?" I'm like, "No, I've never heard of this move ever." And then they're trying to describe it to me. I'm like, "You mean modified mount?" And they call it some like random. Sophia's actually told me
What
about.
did she call?
I forget what she called it, but she has like some fucking stupid name for it.
I gotta ask.
And it's
I'm
because she was
curious.
taught it by another teacher.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't the guy just call it the move that every single other person in the world calls it?
She used to go to Radioga. Maybe
I
he
didn't.
calls
I-
it something
He
else.
does. I didn't want to call him out specifically.
No. But what is it? What is
Shout out
it?
to Radio.
I'm trying to figure out what he calls it because I've heard him say something and I
It's
thought about
like
saying.
some random ass name.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, just call it what everyone else calls it.
Well, speaking
Just
of,
make it easy.
there are reasons behind every name. Like, let me give you an example, a couple of examples, and then we close out. 10th Planet you mentioned, right? In 10th Planet you have the zombie, right? Do you know why the zombie is called a zombie? It's
because of the movement. You're like,
you're going like, oh yeah. Now,
That's
yeah.
lame.
Why is mission control called mission control? Because you start. That's your starting position. It's like calling it
Yeah, but it
home
sounds
base,
stupid.
right? Why is?
But like, also they're the ones that basically made up that position. So I think if you make up
All right,
something,
that's a-
like,
Do you know why? Yeah. Do you know
That's
why New York?
official-ish.
The position New York is called New York.
no.
Tell me, I guess.
Because if you got there, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. It's like optimal, right? And there is a position called New
If
Jersey.
it helps you learn it, I'm
There's a
not gonna
position
talk.
called New Jersey. You want to know
Whatever.
why? And we're gonna close out on this happy note. Because it's almost like New York, but not quiet. Which I think is hilarious.
Shout out to Planet.
You can make it there, you can make it anywhere. I think that's pretty good. Anyway, anything else you want to say?
No.
No. He's like very reserved.
Thumbs up.
What do you want to say?
We're trying to get to 100 subscribers.
100?
5?
I do actually want to say one thing. This dude helped me in my
don't.
development in Jiu-Jitsu.
As he is me.
Like, really, he's like one of the most important people for me developing my game. He's suffered through all of the back riding shit.
I did suffer through it. The things I mentioned.
I mean, like the amount of pain this man has gone through just to help me learn how to do something slightly better.
He-
That's
you know,
true. That's true.
he's an oak.
That's true.
This man has really helped me get
Oh,
to where
thanks.
I'm at.
Thanks for the recognition.
I want my
appreciate
$20
it.
after.
Thought I'd give it to you in advance. We spoke about that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for agreeing to do that with us.
Yes.
It was a pleasure having you here.
As long as you pay me, it's all good.
It's, that $20 is yours.
Checks
I
in the
told you
mail.
already.
Check's already in the mail.
The check bounced
No.
already before I got in the mail.
I'm not
Personal
gay, but
checks.
$20 is $20.
The things you have done for $20. Even though they,
Again, what
they
happens in
usually,
the park stays in the
they
park.
usually take 3 minutes.
That's some dittiness
All right.
going on.
Anyway, on that happy note, congratulations again on the black belt.
Yes.
That was
Well
amazing.
deserved.
That was amazing. That was
Super
really
proud.
good. And please like, subscribe, comment,
All that.
follow us on Instagram.
Compliment us.
Yes, and that's it. I think, right? Yeah. You want to talk about that girl again or no?
Next week we'll have an
Ah,
update.
okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. That's it. See ya.